Well, good morning again. We have started talking about the ethical aspects of research. We already have completed talking about the basic concepts related to the ethics and its relevance in research. In this lecture, we would be talking about the syllabus component, which says about information, about Institutional Ethics Committee, that is IEC, and Animal Ethics Committee, that is AEC, and their functions. Our learning objectives for this lecture would be to know about the structure, purpose, and functioning of IEC and AEC in research. So let us begin this lecture. Begin talking about Institutional Ethics Committee and Animal Ethics Committee. We need to understand that these two are the institutional level or the primary agencies. That means that these are the first agencies which are going to assess about any research proposal that this is ethical or not. So these are the primary agencies. These are having a responsibility to monitor that while conducting the research, ethical principles of research related to human or animal participations are being carefully followed. Further to this, primary responsibility of these committees is to ensure that safety and interest of research participants are not being compromised during the process of planning and conducting the research. How these committees are important in research? As per the current research guidelines, any research involving human or animal participation cannot be conducted unless it has an approval from respective committees, that is either Institutional Ethics Committee or Animal Ethics Committee. So you cannot do a research unless you have got an approval from these respective research committees. Further to this, CTRI registration, that is Clinical Trial Registry of India registration, cannot be done without an approval from the respective committees. Further to this, if you are pursuing for any doctoral or postdoctoral research, your synopsis will not be accepted in university unless it has ethical clearance. And further to this, a research grant application may not be entertained unless it has an ethical clearance. So you see that research cannot be conducted unless it has got a clearance from the respective ethics committee, may it be the Human Ethics Committee or Animal Ethics Committee. So what are the key principles about the structure and function of IEC? This is very, very important to understand that how it functions and how it is being structured, this Institutional Ethics Committee or Animal Ethics Committee. So to begin with, we can understand that these committees may either be linked with an institution, a single institution, or can be linked with a pool of institutions, or sometimes they can also work as a freelance body without any specific association with any institution. Whatever their specific identity is, they function independently. This is very, very important to understand that IECs and IAECs function independently, enjoying complete functional autonomy irrespective of their primary association with any kind of institution. They may be related with some institution, but they function completely independently with complete autonomy. And because of this independence and autonomy, these committees are accountable for their own decisions. Whatever they do, it's their own business, and institution basically has nothing to do with their own decisions. These committees need to report to central monitoring agencies. They need not to report to the institutional head, but they need to report to the central monitoring agencies like CDSCO, that is Central Drug Safety and Control Organization. Unfortunately, in Ayurveda, we do not have this kind of a structure. In Ayurvedic research, this is why if it involves any kind of active compound based active compounds based or new molecule based research, it is accountable to CDSCO, and otherwise normally the Ayurvedic researchers which are involving the whole drug formulations, they are not required to be accountable to CDSCO. Sometimes it is being told that they have to report to CCIM, but this mechanism is still in the process. Let us look at the constitution, composition and working standards of ethics committees. This constitution, composition and working standards of ethics committee is primarily defined by ICMR guideline. The latest guideline is of 2017. These guidelines basically act as a template to initiate the IEC formation and its function with that institutional functional liberty. This is very important to say that ICMR conceals it in that way that if an institution is working in a very, very specific area which requires some specific modification in IEC composition or constitution or the working standards, they can be modified as per the actual need of the institution. So these guidelines are not mandatory, but primarily they act as a template to initiate the standard functioning of the IEC. For the research in ASU, that is Ayurveda, Siddha and Unani drugs, Ministry of Ayush, Government of India has issued a detailed GCP guidelines. This was issued in 2013. These guidelines largely deal with the essentials of a clinical trial and also include the composition and constitution of IEC. I mean, they talk about that how the IEC is to be constituted in an institution, what would be its composition, and how a clinical trial would be conducted in an Ayurvedic, Siddha or Unani institution. So what would be the IEC composition? As per the template which is issued by the ICMR, it says that an IEC is usually composed of 7 to 8 members. This would be chaired by an eminent authority in the area of clinical or animal research. And this chairman essentially has to be from outside the institution. The institutional member should not be the chair of the IEC of that institute. The other members of the committee are clinicians, scientists, lawyers, social scientists, representatives of the community, etc. I mean, they can be selected from these many areas. The committee's routine work are accorded by a member secretary who usually is from the institution. A committee, once constituted, works for 2 to 3 years and subsequently can be revised or reformed. Let us look at the ethics committee review process and how the research proposals are to be reviewed by the research committee, review committee. The ethics committee usually reviews the research proposals once or twice in a year. It can take expedited reviews as and when it is needed. Sometimes it can take the quick reviews or expedited reviews also. The review is mainly conducted upon safety-related issues. The primary focus of the review process is on the safety-related issue of the interventional plan. Other issues which can also be discussed, sometimes IEC can also discuss about the relevance of the research, the optimal utilization of resources, competency of the researchers, post-research benefit sharing, plan of dealing with the adversities if occurring during the trial. These can also be reviewed by the ethics committee. The informed consent process and allowing the participant to withdraw from the research without compromising any benefit which they are entitled to obtain as a patient forms an important component of IEC review. That means the ethics committee would be highly interested to see that how the informed consent process is taken up by the particular research proposal. The ethics committee review basically revolves around the 21 points which serves as a framework of the EC review, and these points are available at ICMR Handbook on National Ethical Guidelines for Biomedical and Health Research involving human participants. This is issued in 2018. So what are these 21 points? Let us take them one by one. The first one is the researcher must protect the dignity, rights, safety, and well-being of the research participants. The second is the researcher should have appropriate qualifications, competence in research methodology, and be compliant towards the scientific, medical, social, ethical, and legal requirements of research. The third is the researcher, sponsor, and ethics committee must conduct a benefit risk assessment and actively attempt to maximize benefits and minimize the risk of the participant. The fourth is the benefit to the individual, community, or society, which refer to any sort of favorable outcome of research, whether direct or indirect. The social and scientific value of research should justify the risk, which is the probability of discomfort or harm anticipated as physical, psychological, social, economical, or legal harm. The next point is the risk can be categorized. Whatever risk is associated with any kind of research proposal, this can be categorized in 4 categories. One is less than minimal risk, second is minimal risk, the third is low risk, and fourth is high risk. So the research has to be reviewed within these categories, as per these categories. So the ethics committee must decide about type of review required. It is exempted review or expedited review or full committee review, depending upon the level of risk involved. If it is a high risk proposal, possibly it requires a full committee complete review or normal review. If it is having minimal risk association, it may have a sort of exempted or expedited review also. The other point is the researcher must obtain informed consent from the participant or the legally acceptable or authorized representative. This is very important, that who are the authorized representative or legally acceptable representatives of the participant. The informed consent document, which composes of 2 things. One is the participant information sheet and the other is the informed consent form, should carry the specific elements in a simple layman's language. These documents should be approved by ethics committee before they are being taken up by the participants. Oral consent, waiver of the consent, re-consent may be obtained under certain conditions after due approval by the ethics committee. Researchers should safeguard the privacy and confidentiality of participant and research related data from unauthorized access. This is the responsibility of the researcher, that what all data they have generated by the process of research, that should be cared safely, or that should be kept safely. The other points are benefit and burden of research should be equitably distributed among the participating communities or individuals. The participants should not be made to pay. This is very, very important. We need to understand that participants should not be made to pay for research related expenses incurred beyond the routine clinical care. If you are asking your patient to go for routine MRIs or routine CT scans every time when they come for the follow-up, possibly these are the extravagant expenses incurring upon the patient. So these are not really allowed in a routine research. Reimbursement for expenses can be made in cash or kind or both. The next point is the researcher must report all serious adverse events to the ethics committee within 24 hours of knowledge and submit a detailed report on this serious adverse event relatedness to the research within next 14 days. The next point is that research participants who suffer direct physical, psychological, social, legal, or economic harm are entitled to financial compensation or other forms of assistance. The other point is that it is the responsibility of the sponsor, whether a pharmaceutical company, a governmental or non-governmental organization, national or international, bilateral or multilateral, donor agencies or institution, to include insurance coverage or provision for possible compensation for research related injury or harm within the budget of the research. The other points are in investigator initiated or students research, as it is very common in Ayurveda, Siddha and Unani postgraduate education, that the researches are initiated by the student. So in student research, the investigator institution where the research is conducted becomes the sponsor. It is the institution which is the sponsor in that case. An institution must provide the compensation for research related injury through insurance, corpus fund or research grant. The other point is that free medical care may be offered as ancillary care for non-research related conditions or incidental findings if it does not amount to undue inducement as determined by ethics committee. Policies for declaration and management of financial or non-financial, personal, academic or political conflict of interest for researchers, ethics committee, institution and sponsor must be implemented by research institution. The other point is that the selection of vulnerable and spatial groups, sometimes it happens that you need to choose the vulnerable groups or spatial groups for the research. But if at all these are the research participants, they need a very, very careful consideration with provisions of additional safeguarding and close monitoring so that no harm can be incurred upon these participants. Engaging with the community, this is also one very important research review related framework, that engaging with the community from the beginning of the research till after its completion helps to improve design and conduct of research and ensures greater responsiveness of health needs. However, the consent of every individual participant is essential. And finally, the post-research access and benefit sharing may be done with individuals, communities and population wherever it is applicable after completion of the study. So these 21 are the basic review related frameworks or the points around which the review process revolves. So let us look at what the review process is. These framework points usually make the core of the ethics committee review of a research proposal. The committee, upon review of the proposal, arrives at a decision of approving it or rejecting it. Clarification may also be asked on certain issues if the ethics committee feels that enough details are not being told or not available. Committee may also reject a proposal if they do not satisfactorily agree upon the issues of safety of the participant in a given research proposal. Ethics committee may decide about if a submission needs an exemption, expedited review or a routine review. An ethics committee meeting is called upon after having this initial decision about the type of review needed for a particular research proposal. And every ethics committee member should follow the policy of expressing the conflict of interest related to submitted proposal. It should not be there that a research proposal is being discussed in the review process where a member of the ethics committee himself has some conflict of interest with that particular proposal. This kind of thing is not really allowed during the review, during the research proposal reviews. So what are the responsibilities of IAC? IAC is primarily responsible for safeguarding the dignity, rights, safety and well-being of research participants. Ethics committee is responsible for scientific and ethical contents of the research proposals. Ethics committee should have well-defined standard operating procedures. Each member of the ethics committee should have a defined role and responsibility. Ethics committee members should also be trained in protection of human research participants, standard operating procedures, and good clinical practice guidelines related to their own subject. If it is an Ayurveda, Siddha or Unani research or ethics committee, its ethics committee members should be trained in the GCP related with the ASU. An EC member should be conversant with relevant ethical guidelines and regulations which are prevailing concurrently. So this is in a nutshell the responsibilities of ethics committee. If this, the middle one is if this is the research participant, and if these are the possible risks and harms which are possible to to incur upon the research participant. The ethics committee is responsible for ensuring the safety and dignity of research participants. Thank you.